You were going to talk about Elon Musk and Tesla
Yeah.
leaving Malaysia or losing interest in being in Malaysia and ASEAN generally. ASEAN generally, yeah, yeah. I think that has more to do with the Houthis than anything else. It probably has more to do with the Houthis and Yemen than it has to do with him necessarily losing interest in Malaysia, although or ASEAN. Although there are aspects of it also that are certainly political. But the truth is that, for example, container shipping prices have doubled over the last year, basically doubled since the beginning of the conflict in Gaza and the Red Sea. And that's because of what the Houthis are doing in the Red Sea. It's amazing to think. It's really amazing to think that just this group of what everyone regards as a militia, but I mean, it's functionally a government in Yemen. In just this one country, they're able to disrupt the whole planet, then the economy of the whole world, and companies, from Asia to America are disrupted. And it's not just the Houthis, because the Houthis could be stopped. The ability of the Houthis to do what they're doing could be stopped. Not necessarily that you could completely annihilate the Houthis, but you could stop their ability to do what they're doing. But they're getting backed. They're getting backed by the region. They're getting backed even by Saudi Arabia, that has been at war with them, but they're getting backed by Saudi Arabia. The U.S. attacked them. The U.S. carried out strikes against them, and Saudi Arabia condemned it. Condemned the strikes on the Houthis, who you've been conducting strikes against for years. But now that's over. Now we're on a peace plan. Now we're on a roadmap for peace. And now Saudi Arabia is also in BRICS with Iran.
Yeah.
And Iran is the backer of the Houthis in some capacity.
Bear in mind that Saudi Arabia had already achieved peace, I think, last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bumpy road, but they've been pursuing peace for a while now.
And then when this was ongoing, and there were conspiracy theories about Saudis backing the American control over the situation by attacking the Houthis, they came forward to say that they don't have any beef with the Saudis.
Right.
Yeah, it has to be emphasized here.
Right.
The Saudis are facilitating that, and not by the Americans.
Yeah. They're giving them as much protection actually as they can, and that's hitting Elon Musk, because I think they even shut some factories in Europe. Tesla did shut some factories in Europe, and all of this is part of the transition to the global South, in my opinion. What BRICS is doing, and the fact that I think that the Houthis are operating really under the auspices of BRICS. Because again, there's not a serious question about the fact that they could be stopped. But you can't even get anyone on board with trying to stop them in the region. That's very important. And that's overlooked. And it's also, especially like when you have people who want to put forward this idea that the Arab regimes are pro-Israel and American puppets and so on. All you have to do is look at the Houthis. You will applaud the Houthis and congratulate the Houthis and big up the Houthis as if they're doing what they're doing without regional approval.
Oh, yeah.
You act like they're doing it in defiance of the region. They couldn't. That wouldn't be possible. Everyone said that you don't even get to conduct strikes against them using our airspace. So they're collaborating with each other. They're coordinating with each other. And that's, in my opinion, that's all within the context of those countries being aligned with BRICS, being BRICS members. Because the BRICS countries aren't negatively affected by that. Shipping container prices are so high, which means the movement, the delivery of not just finished product, but the parts that need to be moved around the world in order to make the product. All of that is slowed down, and all of that is more expensive.
Across the board.
Across the board, yeah. From start to finish, it's a more expensive process and a slower process, which makes it you can't maintain your factories. You can't maintain your output.
All because Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want to resign and risk arrest.
Right, and that's where it really gets where you really get down to the reality of what's causing all of this problem.
Problem.
The actual problem, if you want to call it a problem, say that the disruption, all the disruption to the global economy is laid at the feet of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah.
The disruption of the entire global economy is because, and then take it a step further, is because America won't do what it's supposed to do with regards to Israel. They're not going to do with Israel what they would do if anyone else was doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because that's who you are. This is what I was saying in the live with Sister Haya, that it's a kind of like the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. America was founded, and grew and developed by means of genocide of the indigenous population. That's the first bookend. That's the first bookend for American empire, and Gaza is going to be the last bookend, the closing bookend for the American empire. Starts with genocide, ends with genocide. Genocide made you, and genocide will end you. Genocide will destroy you because of your whole culture, your whole so-called civilization, and your whole system is summarized in Israel and the Zionist colonial occupation. That Israel is a microcosm of everything America is. The violence, the racism, the colonization, the brutality, the fraud, the corruption, the complete disregard even for your own citizens. Israel's the same way. They don't care about their own people. Look at how many of their people are in the street saying, sign an agreement and get the hostages home. You don't care. You don't care about the people who are or are not hostages. You don't care about it. Just like America doesn't care about their own people. Always with the idea that there's an external security threat to your country, which therefore justifies you attacking everyone. Everything. Israel is a microcosm of everything that America is. And America can't extract itself. It can't disconnect itself from that because that's who you are. That's the quintessence of America is manifested in the existence of the Zionist occupation and the existence of Israel. So you are absolutely unable to let go of that. And it's going to pull you into the depths of hell. It's going to end your country. It's going to end your whole empire because you can't let go. You can't do the right thing. You're not capable of doing the right thing because because the right thing is literally the opposite of what you are and what you've always been and what you've built your whole persona around. If you put it in a, anthropomorphic way, the whole personality of America, to get them to do the right thing means for you to just be a completely different person than you are. So you can't.
Yeah.
You are what you are. Yeah, you are what you are. You have to ride this horse off the cliff. Yeah. And then there was the other thing we were going to talk about. I wanted to mention about Bangladesh. And what just happened in Bangladesh. Yeah, I forwarded a bunch of things to you from the Bangladeshi brother from the private chat. Talking about, just how blatantly phony this new so-called interim government is, and how it's clearly just made up of Western agents and Western clients, either who are directly connected already to Muhammad Yunus or who are directed to Western NGOs and so on. And the leaders of the so-called student protesters are just clearly people who work for basically CIA front organizations, and I wanted to talk about it in the context of what we've been reading regarding the history of the U.S. interference in Burma, using it as a launching pad for agitation against China back at the end of World War II and in the 1950s, as a as an attempt to undermine the so-called communist revolution, the communist revolutionary forces. You had Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese nationalists, and then you had Mao. And America supported, of course, the nationalists, which actually just means America created the nationalists. It's not like you're actually a movement that exists. We created you, and we built you up, and you work for us. It's not that America supported them. You work for us. You're supporting us actually in China. That's actually how that translates. When it says America is supporting this or that or the other group, it means that that group is supporting America there in their country, supporting America's agenda in this or that country. So the student protesters were supporting America. If America is backing you, it means that you're backing America and their plans in your country. That's how that translates every time. Every time. And so I was thinking about what they did in Burma and in Tibet and in Nepal, using all of those as launching pads for agitation against China, and also using them as a place to train and organize and coordinate the activities of opposition groups. They did that back in the 50s. And now they've done what they've done in Bangladesh. Well, Bangladesh is very well positioned to be a launching pad for regional destabilization against China, against India, against Pakistan, and they can involve Myanmar, because Myanmar is already a mess, and it's not a mess without the presence of American interference. That is clearly, there's American interference in Myanmar, and I know that from my own history of working with the Rohingya groups, that at least one of the militant factions among the Rohingya is CIA backed. You have people who are very close with the American embassy who are involved in supporting those people. So that's transparent. And then you have in Bangladesh, you have a very large population, at least 1 million Rohingya there, in Cox's Bazar refugee camp and elsewhere. Okay, so Bangladesh can now become a launching pad, and it can become a training ground for separatist groups, for militant groups, for opposition groups, and so on, for the Uyghurs, for example, for the Rohingya, and for other ethnically based opposition or militant factions in Myanmar. All of those can now be, especially because they want to have this military base on St. Martin's Island. They'll use that. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear soon about the construction of a new embassy for the Americans in Bangladesh. I wouldn't be surprised. They may not, but that's one of the normal things they'll do. And that's a sign that it's going to be a hub for their operations regionally. So if they do build like a new embassy, that would be a sign. But I mean, there's a lot of things, like if you're not actually aware and informed and educated about the history of what America has done and how they've done it and how they never change in what they do and how they do, then you're going to get duped. You're going to get led by the nose, just as the Americans want to do and just like they did with your previous generations in your country and in your region, because they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. But if you're not familiar with it, it's all new to you and you'll believe it. I mean, when you look at what they did in Italy,
Back in which time, which era are we talking about?
the end of World War II. I mean, in fact, American interference in Italy is ongoing. It's been decade after decade after decade until today. But it started in 1947, 1948. And there was an absolute, because, okay, let me just say, the communists, the leftists, the socialists were among the strongest factions against the fascists in Italy, against Mussolini. In other words, they're fighting on the side of the Allies against their own government, so-called government, the dictatorship of Mussolini. As soon as they won, the Americans turned against them.
Of course.
Because you're a communist, you're socialist, you're leftist, whatever, meaning you probably want to control your own economy and you want to control your own resources and you want to take care of your people when you don't seem to understand. What we were fighting for was for you to take care of our people. We assumed that that's why you were fighting the Nazis and why you were fighting the fascists was because you love us and you want to take care of our people. Now you're betraying us now as Italians thinking about Italy. You're supposed to only have in your mind the best interests of the United States of America. This is the mistake a lot of people make. So they unleashed an absolute avalanche of propaganda and extortion and bribery against the socialist and communist political parties that were poised to win the election, democratically win the election. And America said, if you elect any kind of a government that includes these people, these leftist, communist, socialists, what have you, if you democratically elect these people, we will cut Italy off financially in every way, and we may even use force to ensure that Italy can remain free.
Free.
You know, free. The definition of free is in my hand.
Yes, free of all leaders.
Yeah.
Subject to us.
Free of Italian sovereignty.
Yes.
And you have to look at the propaganda campaign that they ran and all of the things that they did, so that you can recognize when it's happening today. So you can recognize when they're doing it now, because they're doing it now they haven't stopped. They're doing it against the Muslim rulers. They're doing it against MBS. They're doing it against the UAE and Jordan. And so when you see someone doing that, then you have to know who those people are and realize that, for example, Middle East Eye, or any of these other ones that are basically Ikhwani media outlets, this is a CIA front operation. You've implicated yourself now. You've exposed yourself as basically working for the Americans. Because I see you doing the same thing that everyone else who ever worked for the Americans did, and I'm supposed to pretend that you're not also working for the Americans?
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing that everyone ever did who worked for the Americans.
Yeah, by your characteristic and attributes of what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Implies the same thing.
Yeah. And you may not even know. You yourself may not even know. Because you may be just that stupid and that uneducated and that ignorant and that uninformed about history. And that ideologically blind.
Yeah, and duped into believing that you're doing good.
Yeah, you may really believe it, and that makes you just the saddest person on earth. But the ideal one, the one America will love you better than anybody until they don't have any use for you anymore, and then they'll turn against you too. Like if you're familiar with the history of the CIA and America's covert operations, you cannot misunderstand what happened in Bangladesh as if it was an organic event. If you're familiar at all with the history of America and how they operate, you will never make that mistake of actually confusing what happened with an organic revolution. I mean, if nothing else, you would know that you would know by the American response to what happened, which was
Celebratory.
yeah. Oh, that was great. Well done. I mean, just as a rule of thumb, whenever America is happy about any political development in your country, it's bad for your country. And very likely they're behind it. And if you do an autopsy, a forensic analysis of anyone and everyone and all of the factors that were involved in that political event, you will find America in the DNA. They'll leave DNA traces all over it, just like a crime scene. America's DNA will be all over that crime scene. It's a very useful exercise to take anything that America is doing or saying about another country or in another country, and then reverse it and see if it makes sense. See if it makes sense for Libya to invade America to save them from their dictatorship. Does that make sense? Why does it make sense to you when America does it? Except that you are indoctrinated and propagandized to the point that you don't know right from wrong. And you have accepted now in your head, whether you'll admit it or not, you've accepted in your head that America is by definition good and everything they do is good. And that just makes you a completely propagandized robot. You know, that makes you no different from the Nazis. It makes you no different from the Soviet propagandists who believed everything and anything, who believed that there is no unhappiness in the Soviet Union. You know, no crime exists in the Soviet Union. You believe in this utopian paradise where you actually think that America is perfect and that it basically operates as a vessel of God. So anything and everything they do is righteous by definition. Because if you can't reverse it, why is it righteous when America does it, but when anyone else does it, it's terrorism and a crime and it deserves, you know, massive retaliation. But when America does it, it's fine. Just like with what they did in Italy all those years ago and continue to do until today, while talking about Russian interference in our elections, Chinese interference in our elections, Iranian interference in our elections, what? Cuban interference in our elections. Who else? You know?
As if
Meanwhile, you're doing nothing but interfere in every election everywhere, which is the only reason why you demand there to be elections anywhere. You don't care what form of a government it is, unless there's an election. If you can put an election, then that gives you a better opportunity to interfere and to control the outcome. That's the only reason.
Fair election and fair outcomes in your favor.
Right. That's why you're pro-democracy. You're pro an authoritarian client state with a veneer of democracy to give it legitimacy, to make it look like the people actually supporting American companies. Everyone, you know, if you go around and just ask normal people, what do you want out of life? You know, in the global South, what do you want out of life? What do you see as the purpose of life? All of them, without exception, will say to increase the profit margins of American companies. That's why God put me here. That's my purpose, to improve the American quality of life. You know, that's what they want you to believe, actually. That's actually what they want you to believe everyone in the global South thinks. That's the only way that you could understand their policies and their behavior as making any sense, as not being oppressive and unjust and brutal, is if that was actually true. So the only way for you to not see their policies as brutal and oppressive and unjust is if you really believe that people are walking around in the global South dreaming of ways that they can help American business. That's their highest aspiration in life. I just want to make sure that every American has Netflix. You know, ideally, if I can give my life, if I can give my life for the sake of Americans being able to Netflix and chill, it's been all worthwhile. It doesn't matter what I have to go through. You know how they say if it brings a smile to one child's face, just add American child, fat American child. If I can put a smile on some fat American child's face, it's all been worthwhile. It's not that I don't want them to go hungry. I want them to be better fed. I want them to be more well fed. I want them to have all the calories. They should have all the calories. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, I have children. They go hungry. That's fine. That's what they do. That's why I brought them into the world. That's why I father children, so they can go hungry. Yeah, they can go hungry and die of disease, preventable disease, and so on. That's why I had them. You know, when they're crying at night, hungry, sick, I tell them just know it's for a good reason.
Good utilization.
You are not suffering in vain, my son. Somewhere in America, there's a big fat kid.
Who's happy that you sacrificed.
Stuffing his face with chips and chocolate, watching Netflix for cheap energy. You know, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. I mean, really, that's how you have to really believe. If you can say these things simultaneously, that America does good all around the world, You know, even just that. That's all you have to say. If you can say and mean it, America is doing good all over the world, then this is what you must think about everyone around the world. That we all live, eat, drink, breathe, nothing but the desire to enrich the lives of the Americans and American business. Yeah. Yeah. We're honored. We're honored at the opportunity to serve your profit interests. You have to believe that. So when you tell me that America is doing good all over the world, then I know that you are an absolutely demented, racist, white supremacist, Western supremacist criminal. That's what you are.
It only becomes solidified and real if an American white supremacist talks about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, this isn't going to be someone who this is where it becomes really entrenched and unsolvable, the racial issue in America. Because obviously this woman is not an advocate of white supremacy.
I know. Yeah, I understand.
But you are a product of white supremacist thinking, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Even African Americans can have this
yes.
type of behavior.
Yes. Well, at the end of the day, African Americans also have to understand you're Americans.
Yeah.
This actually is the way the rest of the world sees you, because this is also the way that you interact with the rest of the world.
As if only what you say describes reality.
Yeah. Yeah. This again, I mean, we need to come up with a kind of a bullet points or something of the attributes of the American condition. And it's not far removed from just the general Western condition. One of which is that you are so impenetrably insular that you really cannot understand anyone else's experience, and that your own experience is universal. Everything that you believe is universal, and it is always right. From your vantage point is always the right vantage point that gives you a 360-degree view. Your little narrow point of view is always the definitive 360-degree view of any issue, or of any place, or of any religion, or of anyone else's experience or history. That is a thing that is characteristic of every American, white, black, brown, whatever they are. All of them have that mindset. And this is why I think,
Yeah, this is across colors. It's
yeah,
exclusive.
it's even largely across class.
Yeah.
Because that's just it. That's how you were raised, really. I mean, you have a hard time understanding anyone else's experience in your own country on a class level and on a racial level. Obviously, you don't see as valid. White people don't see as valid, for example, the grievances of African Americans, unless they want to say that for the purpose of disassociating themselves with white supremacy. That's generally the reason why they will express solidarity or express a sympathy or empathy or understanding about the experiences of black people. Isn't because they have sympathy or empathy or understanding of the experiences of black people. It's so that they can disassociate themselves from white supremacy. It's about how you want yourself to be perceived. It's not about your ability to actually perceive and understand other people. It's about, I want to improve my image.
It's not even about internally correcting yourself.
No, it's not about correcting yourself at all. It's about making sure that you never have to.
Because you have this constant tag.
Yeah, officially I'm a liberal.
Yeah.
Officially, I'm a very understanding, empathetic person. Officially, I'm not a white supremacist. Officially, I'm not a racist.
Right.
Because I'm in the marches. I voted for Obama. Or whatever the case may be. So it's about making sure that I'm perceived the way that I want to be perceived, and so that I can feel that way about myself without actually doing anything about it. And I almost don't blame them, because you don't have the tools. You really don't have the tools. There is no solution. Like I just said in the chat, there really is no remedy for the racial ailments of the United States except for Islam. There's nothing. There is absolutely nothing. except Islam that can save you, because it is an intractable mess on all sides, of all colors, whatever color you are. You have this the racism and racialism and racialization of every single thing is an absolute pestilence on your psychology, on your psyche, and there's nothing that can remove it except Islam. Really.
I think a lot of colored people may find this hard to
Sure,
register,
sure, but that's a symptom.
Yeah,
That it,
outsiders see you like that.
yeah,
Americans,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what color you are; they're just American.
yeah. I mean, you can see the sort of spat going on now between South Africans and African Americans.
Yeah.
Like, you think you're gonna lecture, African Americans? You think you're gonna lecture South Africans? You think you're gonna lecture South Africans or anyone in Africa? What?
It's very cute.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You also have the Western supremacist, American supremacist, main character mindset, and the inability to understand anyone else, and the inability to have the humility, to actually close your mouth and listen. The same thing that African Americans will accuse white people of accurately, of not listening to them, of just waiting for their turn to speak.
Right.
I'm officially letting you talk until it's my turn to speak, so that I can't be accused of trying to mute your voice. That's the only reason they'll let black people speak, so that I can't be accused of muting your voice. And now you've spoken. Okay, now it's my turn. And but all of Americans are like this. Americans are just like this. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Americans are just like this. So you as I say, accurately accuse white people of that in America, but Africans can accuse you of that just as accurately. You don't listen. You don't try to understand. All you think you have to do is lecture everybody in the world, because you think that your experience is universal. And it's not. And especially the African American experience. It's literally not duplicated anywhere on earth in history. African Americans are a completely unique phenomenon as a people. They don't, who they are culturally, what their history is, what their experience is, isn't duplicated anywhere on earth. You don't know where you came from. You don't know what country you came from. You don't know what culture you came from. You don't know what language you came from. You don't know what your religion was before. And you, like I've said before, you're more American than anyone, because you don't have any other identity.
Yeah.
Actually, your entire identity is American based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American, I'm German American, I'm Italian American, I'm Jewish American, I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that, because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever. It's like, it would be it's like me saying European American. I'm not European. I'm specifically Irish and German. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. Everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants.
Yeah.
You're originally American, and your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You're the indigenous people of the entity called America, called the United States of America. Everything else came from elsewhere. Your culture is the only one that came from right there, because you were cut off from everything else. There's nobody else like that. There's nobody else like that in the world. There's no other culture like that in the world.